I would say, when we look back at well construction, kind of taking a professionalism in the 40s and 50s, the well was a true resource appreciated by the owner, whether it was a residential or a municipal entity there. And so, there was a lot of deference given to the driller, and the drillers had a lot of experience. That was, it was a one project at a time, see it through completion. And I remember interviewing a driller in the 1990s, and I said, well, when do you know that you're done on the job site? And he's like, I know when I'm done. And it was so definite. It was like, and this guy was in his 80s. Like, I'm not going to argue there. But then I think you move forward, into the 80s and 90s, and we had drilling taking on a more business entity mindset and push and time. Things started to get rushed. And, if you look at Mike Meemert, when he gave his McElhaney in 2010, when you develop that well, you're setting that resource in play. And that I would have hoped had been a wake up to the industry, and not just us in the groundwater industry, but American Water Works Association, Rural Water Association as well, as that development sets the tone of that well, whether it's production efficiency, cost to operate, produced water quality, longevity, et cetera. And there's kind of surges and awakenings, but then we have drought and almost a land rush mentality with getting new wells in the ground, and corners are cut. And as I've always said, development comes at the tail end of the project. The budget is shot, and everybody's nerves are tied, afraid, and the engineer doesn't want to talk to the driller anymore, and neither want to talk to the owner. It's not sexy at all, but it's key to that. And any hiccups or delays that happen in that process, can pan out and haunt that well moving forward. Then we get into COVID, and it was material was going to be delayed a week, and then 7 months, and then a year, and 18 months, and so forth. And a couple of things we had substitutions, and also we had these long delays or idle periods. And in the development side of things, that really hurt us. We were using products we either weren't familiar with or hadn't been fully vetted to use downhole. And then also the well, when it sits idle, it becomes a problem in and of itself. And so you had drilling completed, and you may be waiting 6 to 8 months for that pump, and they're waiting on development for there. And that development problem now starts to multiply. It may advance to a water quality issue, or it may just firm up even more. And so you've got a harder wall cake to break down. Over that time too, you had a lot of changes in the labor force. And also we got comfortable being uncomfortable and not being on site and not sitting down at the table and talking about with everybody that was part of that project what we were going to do. And so processes got overlooked, or they got sped up. Again, substitutions were made, and we've seen more development issues post-COVID haunting wells than 20 years prior. And that's through several drought cycles, that's through material changes and an evolution within the industry. I think it's across the board. The communication suffered, changes were made, the familiarity wasn't there. We also have seen a lot more amendments to MUDs, again, trying to rush the process and get things moving where we could. And I think that's haunted us. We've gone into production wells, environmental wells, ASR wells, and even monitoring wells that weren't cheap to put in, especially when you look at the total cost, land and infrastructure and so forth. But they're plagued by poor development. And the signatures are there, fortunately, so we can identify the problem and remediate them. But if we would have just spent a little more time as an industry, communicated a little more, I think we could have worked through it a little more efficiently. No pun intended.